Steve, you have a couple of charts for us that put the market hemorrhaging into historical perspective, and also we'll talk about how we respond. But what do you have?
Well, look, first of all, I think every day that goes by, the economists get more and more pessimistic about what we're looking at. We are now looking at, it's not a question of whether we're going to be in a recession. It's not a question of whether we are in a recession. We are in a recession, and it seems to be unfolding as a recession of really historic performances. And a number that came out yesterday, I think that stunned a lot of us, was a new forecast from J.P. Morgan, in which they're looking now, a week ago, I think they were looking at 3 or 4% down GDP in the second quarter. They are now looking at 14% annual rate decline in GDP in the second quarter rather. That would be a historic record by any measure. We have never had a decline in quarterly GDP, at least since the Depression, of more than 10%. And you can see the magnitude of that decline if you look back over here at what happened in the Great Recession, which was about an 8% decline in the worst quarter. Now, J.P. Morgan is projecting that we'll have a big jump up in the third quarter rather, as people get back to work and start spending the money they're not spending. That sort of presupposes that on July 1, everything is back to normal and we're all out there spending money and doing stuff, which seems a little hard for me to imagine. But if this happens...
Well, Steve, if I can interrupt for a second, these forecasts have been overly optimistic every day as you roll over the past several weeks. We're hearing from the best and the brightest medical minds that actually it doesn't just go away one day magically and daffodils come out and people start jumping up and down across meadows throwing $1,000 bills at consumers and J.P. Morgan. It's going to be, from what we hear, it's going to be a rolling virus. So we may hit a peak, it may go down, then it can pop up again, then it goes down, then it comes back again. That's what this is going to look like until we have a vaccine, according to a lot of medical professionals who, of course, say this isn't going to be a blizzard, this is going to be a long winter.
That's an important point, Joe. I think people in their heads think, well, if we just do social distancing and maybe shelter in place for 3 weeks, life is going to be fine. But that's not at all, at least and we spend a lot of time listening to public health experts because we have to invest money based on what they say. It's not what you hear. What you hear is this flattening of the curve, which then leads to the same number of people being infected just over a long period of time. Before I get to the stock market, though, let me try to translate this GDP into real numbers, because what you are starting to see are massive applications for job insurance around the various states. So I'll give you a couple of statistics. In Connecticut, in the first 3 days of this week, there were 30,000 applications for unemployment insurance. They typically have 3,000. Right. In Massachusetts, they had 19,884 applications for unemployment insurance. In the entire month of February, they had a little over 17,000. In Illinois, they had 41,000 applications on Tuesday alone for unemployment insurance. They had 4,500 over 2 days in a normal period. I mean, you are looking, in addition to GDP, which is a kind of amorphous concept for many Americans, you're looking massive declines massive increases in unemployment, massive declines in the real industry. Car companies are shutting down. Service industries, of course, are shut down all over America. And getting back to this question of how the virus unfolds, Joe, this is not like a play at which you have an intermission and then everybody comes back and finishes the play. This is more like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, who gets caught in the rain, he gets rusted, and he just sits there until somebody unsticks him. And we can talk about the stock market reaction, because yesterday was another bad day. And as it happens, yesterday brought the stock market all the way back to where it was when Donald Trump was inaugurated, almost exactly back to where he was when he was inaugurated. We can all talk about Trump's role in this and so on. But what this represents, this is the steepest, fastest decline in stock market history. It's down 32% from the peak. It has taken less than a month to get there. To put that in historical perspective for you, in the Great Recession, it took a year for the stock market to fall as much as it has fallen in this country in 1 month. And without getting too political about it, I think there is a piece of this that certainly relates to leadership. And you can track it literally to when the market feels like Washington is on top of this, when Trump feels like he's got his act together, market, okay, we can deal with this. Then he gets out there and says stuff that freaks people out, or they don't understand, or it doesn't sound like he's taking it seriously. and it goes the other way. So you got a piece of real stuff going on here. You got a piece of leadership stuff going on here.
Well,
Yeah.
and we also have, again, the next act. We're just in Act 1 of this. Act 2 is when the hospitals start to get jammed, Mika, when
We see the lack of supplies.
Healthcare professionals don't have the supplies they need to keep them safe, then they go down. And the possibility, the very real possibility, and I'm certainly not saying this to disturb anybody, but this is the reality we seem to be facing. If healthcare professionals don't have the safety supplies they need, then our healthcare professionals go down, and then suddenly an overtaxed emergency room, an overtaxed hospital, an overtaxed healthcare system collapses. So this situation, let's hope, the social distancing, let's hope governments shutting down interaction between people, let's hope that stops that emergency from coming. But again, there's a 3-week lag on everything that's happening. So I think even if we shut the country down tomorrow, or even if we shut the country down today, that 3-week lag is still going to hit us, and it's going to be felt most acutely in the hospitals, in the emergency rooms, where we don't have basic equipment.
Well, and to Steve's point, the market is responding to the leadership, and if he seems strong and seems like he knows what he's doing, perhaps it'll respond differently. But here's what the market is looking at. Are we depending on social distancing to solve this crisis? Do we really think all Americans, including the tens of thousands of young people that we see on the beaches, are going to be the ones that can pull us through this? So if not, it's going to be leadership, which has been proven to have so far botched this with the testing, which we still don't have. There's no testing, and the market can see that this is going to get worse before it gets better. Okay, so how is this president going to respond to this? Are we going to have what we need? Are we going to have the supplies? He's moving military ships. It's going to take weeks. He's going to have ventilators? No, he's not. They don't exist, and ventilators are complicated machines. It's not like you can just order them up and call on the private sector and have them just make them in their printers.
Mika,
it doesn't work like that.
We're going to be having Dr. Dave on very soon, who has some really disturbing information about ventilators, and it's grim.
It's grim.
It's a grim situation, and again, I don't know why the president would be waiting to use the full power of his office and the full power of this Defense Act for an emergency to come. The emergency obviously is here. He declared it. We need to get moving right now. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.